Partner ex-wrestler, he dates for Cheska, partner ex-wrestler.
Hello everybody and welcome back. It is Monday, October 30th, 2023, and you are listening to episode 174 of the Midnight Film Society podcast. I'm your host, Damian. Joining me today is...
Derick McDuff.
On today's show, spooky season is coming to a close, which means we'll be talking about the best horror films I watched for Hooptober. But before that, we'll be going over some movie and TV news, do some what we've been watching before concluding with an in-depth discussion of Martin Scorsese's newest film, Killers of the Flower Moon. Right into the show at midnightfilmsociety@gmail.com, Bicycle on Twitter, subscribe on Pocket Cast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, rate and review it on Apple Podcasts. Tell a friend, family member, or stranger. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I've been going on a lot of adventures recently. Some of them spooky in nature. So I've been all right.
Nice, very cool. Yeah, we'll hear all about that later. About where Derick's been going.
Yes, but do we want to address the thing?
the elephant in the room, the name in the room. The Midnight Film Society. So the podcast has changed a lot over the years. I started in beginning of 2019, really just as like a New Year's resolution of like, I've listened to podcasts for a long time. I want to make one myself. If you go back and listen to the first few episodes, which I don't recommend doing, but if you wanted to do that, it very much was not this format. There was really no format at all, which was the problem. It was just one of those, hey, let's get together and chat about random shit. So it was that for like 10 episodes, then 20 episodes. And after about 50 or 60, we finally got a format. We started talking more about media, started talking more about movies and TV shows. And then it became much more movie focused once you came on. And so that's really what brought about the change. We record at midnight, or I record midnight my time. We record nighttime podcasts usually. So there's the midnight in there. We talk about film. And as Joaquin Phoenix, the poetic man himself said, we live in a society. So that's where the that's where the title came from. So there's that.
It's a lot more. Yeah, it's a lot more like when you're kicking back at ideas. It's a lot more about what the podcast is now. Can I say something like we were saying? It was just like, oh yeah, it just could be anything. But this is like, this lets you know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, Can I Say Something was a very catch-all name. Mm-hmm. I was talking to you about it, and I think it has a lot to do with just name recognition, not just the name of the show, but just like the person that's doing it. Like a lot of them will just have like some weird name that has nothing to do with anything, like Happy Sad Confused, hosted by Josh Horowitz, which is, he's worked in Hollywood for a long time, so people know him. So the name of his show didn't really need to be anything. Commode and Mayo, they're known names, they're known quantities in media. Blank Check, that doesn't really tell you what the show is about, but they're known people. Whatever podcast they would put out, the people would go to because they have the name recognition, and so forth. But yeah, this, not being a known quantity as we are, definitely needed, a marquee name of like, what is Can I Say Something? I don't even know what that is. So you just pass right on by it. But, having the name out there should hope get some eyeballs on it and get some views and engagements, and smashing like buttons should be happening more often. So there's that. Yeah.
Smash that like button, people, even though there's no like button on the podcast. Yeah.
There isn't, but there is Spotify does some cool stuff where they'll put just like a general, what do you think of the show? It'll have like a general Q&A section on at least the Spotify version has like a general Q&A section. So there's sort of there are buttons to be smashed, whether there are likes or subscribes. There's some buttons to be smashed. Yeah. So
smash
there's
that 5-star button.
yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get going. Couple deaths recently. One very recent. Richard Roundtree passed away this week at 81. Obviously known, world known as Shaft. As of right now, I haven't seen any Shafts, but I know that's one of the big sort of blaxploitation.
What's his name?
Richard Roundtree.
Shut your mouth.
What's his name? Shut your mouth. So I definitely need to go back and check that stuff out. Obviously, was in more things than that. But really just one of the guys, just like Terrence Davies from last time. Just a guy that's been around for a long time, has had a lot of, very prestigious actor, was in Roots, was in a lot of different things. So yeah, rest in peace to Richard Roundtree. So there was that. One of the greats. And then just before we hopped on the mics here, like a couple hours ago, was reported that Matthew Perry passed away at 54. Obviously best known for Friends, but did many other things. I think he did the the whole 9 yards and the whole 10 yards with Bruce Willis in the early 2000s. Just was in many things, a lot of different projects, a lot of different roles. Definitely struggled with addiction throughout his life. So yeah, very, very sad news today. Yeah.
It kind of really, I was at work when it happened. It, caught me off guard really. Cause it was weird. Cause we had just been talking about Friends an hour earlier. And then it was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, very sad news. Very troubled guy. So, rest in peace to him, and condolences to everybody that knew him. Seemed like a really decent guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Then some more movie and TV news. Martin Scorsese.
Real fast too.
Yes.
Just I want to say, yeah. I believe it was there was one more death this week too. Wanted to shout out from Twin Peaks, and I believe she was also in Carrie. I was just quickly trying to Google her name. See, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The she was on Twin Peaks. She was the
mother in Carrie?
I believe she was also the mom in Carrie.
I believe we talked about her last
maybe
week.
not. No, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm wrong about that. But okay. She was one of the. I'm trying to find her name. I should have had this ready, but yeah, she one of the actors from Twin Peaks who we both really love that show passed away recently, and I just wanted to mention that too while we're mentioning deaths at the top of the show.
Yeah. Piper Laurie. Is that what you're talking about?
That's it, Piper Laurie. Thank you.
Yep. We did mention her last time.
Oh, okay. I thought it was more recent. So
nope.
My mistake. I'm sorry, Piper.
It's good to mention that. Let's see. So Martin Scorsese is apparently how you say his name. Officially on Letterboxd this week. This is cinema is what his description says. To 250,000 followers in this first week on there.
Yep. And I'm one of them.
And you are one of them. I am as well.
I'm one of them.
He only has 79 films so far listed. I can just imagine, because what I did, I'm curious if you did this as well, Derick. When I first got on Letterboxd, I just went through each decade, each year, went through the best films all of those years and decades, and sort of marked off each one I saw. And so I'm just wondering if he's going to spend the rest of his life just going through and just marking off all of the movies he's have seen, like all 10,000 movies. He's probably
I don't think so, because emails scare him, so I don't know how much is gonna be on Letterboxd.
Yeah, I'm also wondering if it's just his daughter or granddaughter, whoever the person we see on all of his TikToks recently set this up for him.
Or some intern did it to cash in on the Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, the craze.
Or to promote Killers of the Flower Moon, because all the film bros are on Letterboxd freaking the fuck out.
You really have it out for the film bros. I think we need to sit down and examine.
Toxic, man. They're examine. They're very toxic, the film bros.
Well, they are, but I don't like Nazis either, but I don't bring them up on like every conversation we could possibly have,
Well, Martin Scorsese and Letterboxd, who do you think is following him,
Right. Right. So you're talking about the haters.
the film bro, well, they love him, they're like, they're like, Marty, Daddy Marty.
I see. Daddy Marty.
Like if we were bringing up Triumph of the Will every week, then I'd probably be like, yeah, fucking Nazis, man, fuck those guys.
Yeah. So I see what you mean, because I thought you were like saying the film bros are like the Marvel guys. Like, what is that? I don't want to talk about them too much, but what is that fucking podcast or whatever that keeps being brought up, and a bunch of people stitch it this week on TikTok, where the guy, you know who I'm talking about, right? The guy that got famous for being like, yeah, my two favorite movies are the Greatest Showman and Avengers Endgame, or Avengers whatever, right? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I have seen that clip. I don't know what that podcast is. I've only seen the clip out of context.
Yeah, and so they got famous this week again by just being doofuses, by being
Was he the guy who was just like, the movie's 3.5 hours long? That's my review.
That's my review. Yes, same guys. Yes. Wow. So those are the guys that you're probably talking about as well, of just like, you know, they spout very unthoughtful things just out into the ether, and they're just trolling people. They're not just trolling. I think some of their thoughts are genuine, but they have found a success in getting their voices out there by saying bullshit, basically, you know, one of those types of people.
About the guys who are like a bunch of the straight white guys who like a bunch of the other straight white guy directors, and who are like really condescending and look down on anything they don't think is cinema. They're, you know, they'll like a, you know, a Marvel movie or like fucking Barbie will come out, and they'll be like, ooh, well, this isn't this is Barbie's not as good as Oppenheimer, or something like those fucking guys, you know, the guys who are just like pretentious and very precious about fucking film. Those guys annoy the shit out of me. You know,
yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Film bros.
Film bros, yes. So
it's a very boys club, very much like, oh yeah, well, you know, if you haven't, like, you know, they're very they're very gatekeep, you know. Those guys are my nemesis.
Your nemesis, your arch nemesis. Yep.
They're the guys who love the term elevated horror, you know.
Probably, yeah. I don't watch them enough to know what their actual ethos is, but you know, what is it? What's that phrase that they always talk about? Like, you know, at least it's not, what was it? Nihilism might be shitty, but it's at least it's ethos, right?
You're just trying to quote the Big Lebowski, where
he's
talking about, he's just like, say what you will about National Socialism, but at least it's an ethos.
Something like that. Yes, exactly. I don't think that was the phrase either, but yeah.
We believe in nothing, Lebowski. We are nihilists. Fucking Peter Stormare.
Okay, so let's get into, I think that's it for TV news, right? Moving TV news. So let's get into all the stuff I've been watching. Absolute fuck ton of stuff this week because I finished The Fall of House of Usher. This is obviously like I said last time, the newest Mike Flanagan project for Netflix. It's his last project for Netflix, and I finished it up this week. I had some notes. Give me 1 second. Did you check out any of this yet?
I wanted to, and I did not have time because I told you I will watch this, and that was like 4 days ago. It's a miniseries.
True.
So no, I did not. I've been watching spooky movies and doing spooky things, so I did not have time for a whole miniseries, unfortunately.
I think it's like 10 episodes. Yeah, it's quite long.
Yeah.
So Fall of Usher is an adaptation of. It's like a broad adaptation. It's not a specific adaptation because the short story it's based on is very short and there's not a lot of meat to it. So it's a general adaptation of that. In addition to that, each episode is named a different Poe poem or Poe short story or Poe novella. And each one sort of is building off the themes of those short stories. It's a mixture of like Poe and I knew I was practicing this phrase before because I can't fucking say it. Dickensian. Thank you, Dickensian. It's got Dickensian
that
themes.
English degree paying off for me.
There you go. You made it. Themes of like heartless rich businessman being visited by past traumas, past transgressions, past ghosts come back to haunt him. And not to get into too much specifics, but the sort of overarching theme and the reason it's being told now and the reason he's telling a story now to a prosecutor that was trying to bring him to justice was because his children are dying one by one in gruesome ways. And also it's at the beginning, so I'll just talk about the beginning a little bit, not to talk about too much about the plot. Him and his wife, the usher, the patriarch of the family, him and his wife in 1980 made a deal with the devil, with a devil or a demon or something, some sort of spiritual figure in a bar. And she said, you will have decades of success and riches in exchange for your life, in exchange for when you die, your lineage will not be passed on to anybody. And so he's not really sure what that means, but he takes the deal, obviously. So there is that sort of, and then that person obviously revisits him as in contemporary day as the story is being told. So it's very good. It's like Succession meets like American Horror Story, stuff like that. It's got a very, very, very over the top, like stylistically, costuming, the performances are just, everybody's chewing the fuck out of the scenery, especially Mark Hamill, who's doing some very interesting work in this.
Ooh.
Yes, he's in this. Henry Thomas is doing like this sort of flamboyant playboy thing, which is very interesting, just based on, the people he's played before have been very, not that. It's very traditional, very quiet sort of performance he's given before. So it's very interesting to see him in this, and just great performances overall. Really, I would highly recommend this, obviously, to anybody that's been a fan of what Flanagan's been doing so far.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really love Midnight Mass, so I do need to check this out.
Yeah. Yep, it's very good. So moving on from that, did you see the newest Loki, the most recent episode of Loki?
No, I did not. I caught up.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, cool, I'm all caught up, and it was like Wednesday morning or something, or Tuesday morning. So it was like right before the new one came out.
Might have been Thursday. I think they come out. So what they do now is, instead of doing it like in the middle of the night, like they used to do it like 3 a.m. drops on Disney Plus. Now it's like Thursday night, I believe. Thursday night at like 9. So yeah.
Okay, so it might have been like Thursday morning because I was like, oh, and it's also my Disney Plus is really hard for me to get to watch because of a lot of things.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so I'll take care of you from that perspective. So yeah, just very quickly and very not spoilerific, very good episode. It's doing a lot of stuff that I've been asking for. If you go back and listen to Decoding TV, Dave Chen's podcast. He has Patrick Klepidong, who is one of my favorite podcasters and just people that generally talk about media these days. Very, very good, very thoughtful guy. I would highly recommend checking out their podcast. I think it was very interesting because Patrick Klepidong basically echoed a lot of the stuff that I was talking about last time, where a lot of that, banter, witty banter, character building, character relationship building, he said, what I said was, that stuff's good. I want that. In addition to having the sort of plot, give the plot enough time to make sense. Give the writers and the actors and the characters enough time to explain what's going on in a way that doesn't feel like they're just spewing techno garble for no reason. Give the audience understanding of what's going on in the plot, in that stuff. So that was his concern going into this episode, and they've definitely, I won't, again, not spoiling anything, but it's definitely a lot of stuff happening, and I can't wait to talk about it with you.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, definitely recommend checking that out.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch it. I did see the third episode, like I was saying, and I really, when they go and they see, because I was like, oh, is Kang or Victor Townley going to be in this? Because of given some, off camera antics, but he did come back and he was like fully in it. Yeah.
Yep. Very cool. Then very quickly, Lessons Chemistry. It's good. It's fine. It's one of those. They talked about this on the watch this week. A lot of podcasts to listen to. Apparently that's what I do at work. It's just one of those. It's fine. It's like a 1950s thing with a modern inclusion of, they have to state the fact that you can't treat women this way, you can't treat black people this way, but it's, if you go back, I'm sure there's people that we're aware of how grotesque that is, how grotesque that behavior was, but I don't know that people back then would actually say that in these positions. So it's sort of like, what would you call that? Like fantasy stuff of just like, here's how we wish those events happened, how we wish those events played out if we were there. I'm sure there were some people that stood up for people. I don't know. Yeah, great performances by Brie Larson. Great performances by a lot of the cast. There's also a lot of like sort of whimsical touches to the book that I'm not sure translate great to the screen. There's like not a talking dog, but like the dog narrates a lot of the book, and in the show it's narrated by B.J. Novak, which is very strange. Very strange. I was like, okay. I know that voice. And I was like, oh, okay, it's that guy. Yeah. So yeah, if you just want an easy, easy breezy, beautiful 1950s, tale that take place back then you might want to check it out if you have Apple TV Plus. It's definitely not something that I would recommend being like you have to get Apple TV Plus for this. It's not like a Foundation. Right. It's not like a Ted Lasso. It's not a Severance. It's not one of those. But if you already have it, definitely recommend checking that out. So there's that.
I mean, I do have it just sitting there. So
yeah. Before I go on to my thing, you checked out some things as well. You checked out Dark Harvest. Tell me what you thought of this.
Dark Harvest was weird.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of David Slade, the guy who directed this movie. Kind of just like I didn't even know it was a thing until I saw like. I think Dave Chen reviewed it. Like I saw a couple people on Letterboxd rated it, and I was like, I saw the poster, which was really striking, and I was like, this is interesting. So I just watched it because apparently it just got dumped on VOD because apparently like this was supposed to come out last year and the year before that, and the rights were picked up by MGM in like February of like 2020. So that explains why it had a complicated and troubled production history. And it's weird. It's very weird. It's like set in the 60s and it's kind of like Hunger Games, The Purge, and like all these things mixed together, like all those kind of concepts, because it's about a bunch of teen boys who go and they try to hunt down this kind of pumpkin head monster guy and kill him so they can sacrifice him to save the town for another year. And then you start to learn what is actually this pumpkin guy, and you're like, I think I know. I've seen movies before, but it's like strikingly beautiful. Like when they'll just be in the way that horror films can be sometimes, where it's just like something's gruesome but it looks so good, or like they'll just be like the blood will spurt out and it'll look all majestic, or they'll be like they'll like be standing in the corn stalks because it's like set in one of those Midwestern states. And like the corn like will just be blowing in the wind while like it's the creepy air, and you're like, God damn, this looks good. And just the way like Slade, like his 30 Days of Night series, or even he made Twilight look pretty good, which is weird that he directed both 30 Days of Night and one of the Twilights. Those are the most different vampire movies ever.
Right.
But yeah, it's a movie that I'm like, you know what? Sure, spend the $6 on it. Why not? It's spooky season.
Yeah.
It's a movie that make you go, huh?
Cinematographer was, you probably noticed the cinematography because it's the same cinematographer of Eyes Wide Shut. Yes, of Only God Forgives, which I haven't seen, but I know Nicholas Winding Refn's movies do look quite good. So yeah, that's probably why.
Yeah.
They look that way. Yep. Let's see what else you watched. Cobweb. I've heard some good things about this. What'd you think of this?
This is a fun movie. This is a slow burn, spooky movie that has a absolutely bonkers third act that I was all there for. Like it has one of those turns where you're like, so what is going on here? And you're like, that's what's going on here? Okay. All right. Like there's a kid, there's this little little pansy kid, and he's like, oh, there's some voices that are talking to me in the wall. And the voice is like, push that bully down the stairs, but be nice about it. And then his parents are like, super protective, overprotective parents, and they're great because it's Lizzie Kaplan and then Anthony Starr, aka Homelander, are his parents, and they're this ultra religious like couple that are like not like we don't have any cell phones or internet, and you can't go trick or treating because it's the devil's time, like that kind of thing. And you're like, they've got some secrets, and you're like, what are the secrets that they're keeping? And once you find out, it is a blast.
Nice. I was gonna say so not like holy shit, that's what's happening, not in a malignant way, but in no,
it's when I watched, I was like, this is like Malignant if it was competent, like this is like Malignant if it wasn't like fucking ridiculous campy nonsense, if it was like actually slow and serious and like relied on like the creepier stuff is not just jump scares. You know, it's just like, oh, there's like a shadow that just slowly comes into the room when you. A lot of the scariest stuff happens off screen. I think that there's a time when you do see something that is you're like that's way scarier when you don't see it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, nice, very cool. And we checked out Megan or Mithrigan from this year.
Mithrigan, yes.
What'd you think of this?
I fucking hated this movie. I did not. Oh, maybe that's too harsh, but I was really bored watching this movie.
Yeah.
And I get that it was trying to go for like the campy thing, like, ooh, like, but there was so much just time when nothing scary was happening.
Yep.
That I wasn't like there was some legitimately great moments of fun campiness in it. Like, oh, she's doing a little dance. It's like all the stuff that was in the trailers, or like she's got her outfit on. Like there was brilliant moments like that, but in between it was just like, oh my god, shut the fuck up, Allison Williams. like you're the worst aunt in the world. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like it wasn't. It didn't even seem. It seemed more like an action movie to me than a scary movie.
It was at
times, to be
yeah.
honest. Yeah, like it felt, and I don't think this is accidental because it's obviously reminiscent of Small Soldiers, but it felt like Joe Dante light, honestly, the whole movie.
Yes, I liked it ish. I have it down at the bottom of my best of the year list. I have it, sitting around things like Creed 3, Boston Strangler, Knock at the Cabin, things like that just didn't. They were fine. They weren't terrible, but yeah, definitely not one of the best of the year. Yep. Yeah,
and it just didn't make any sense. Like it was just like she's evil because she needs to be evil, and then in the end she's like, whatever. I'm gonna spoil it. The line. She's just like, I have a new primary user, me, and you're like, okay, there's no reason that doesn't make any sense, but sure.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and then of course it's set up for a sequel, because the guy had the plans that were supposedly lost or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, something like that. Anyways.
Yeah. Was it Ronnie Chen is his name? Or
yes, something like that.
He's so fucking good.
Yes.
He's so good. Like he's just like he also was in Joyride this year. He's just got he's had a run of just being like a wealthy, and I think it was the same thing in Shang-Chi where he's just like a wealthy douchebag. Like he's so fucking great at it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like the 2023 version of like is it BD Wong that was in the Jurassic Park movies? Like that smarmy
BD
guy.
Wong is like creepier though. BD Wong, you're like, you were in Anne Butterfly. Like he's just in like Jurassic Park, he's just a regular guy, but then like Jurassic World, it's like, oh, he's full BD Wong.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, worth watching, but not one of the best things we saw this year.
I don't think it's worth watching. Skip it.
No?
Fucking skip it. No,
all right.
It was 90 minutes long, and I was like, this could have been 30 minutes long.
Yeah, speaking of opposable thumbs, that's, I give a thumbs up, you give a thumbs down. Okay.
Yes. So wait, real fast.
Yes.
You're a Gene Siskel and I'm Roger Ebert, right? In this situation.
You're saying I'm Roger Ebert? Yeah.
No,
I
I'm
guess
Roger Ebert. You're
Ebert.
Gene Siskel.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. I listened to what's his name, Matt Singer on which show? He was on a couple of different shows, the Film Spotting, and he was on another one where he talked specifically about like top 5 like worst like up and downs or worst.
Was it the Screen Drafts?
Yeah, Screen Drafts. Exactly.
Screen Drafts they did the draft of the 2 Thumbs Down movies.
Yes. So
which is very great.
What I took away from that discussion was that they're very critical of like genre movies. Like a lot of the ones they gave thumbs down to were like Die Hard and like any genre movie, they were like, well, this plot doesn't make any sense. Like you said, Ebert
Army of Darkness
was Ebert, every time they played a clip of what Ebert problem was with the movie was like, this thing doesn't make sense. This plot mechanism doesn't make sense. And it's like, dude, you're not engaging with the movie on its level. It's not trying to make sense. It doesn't need to make sense. So I thought that was very interesting. Yeah. So I guess, in that way you are Ebert.
Well, no, that's because like, I think Ebert, like in reading the book, Ebert's the one who's always just like, he's always like in the world of the movie, like this makes like sense. Like there's this great, and Griffin Newman always brings it up, there's this great one where it's like they're talking about Good Burger and they both gave it a thumbs down, but like like Siskel is like they are dumb, and Ebert's like, no, they're smart, right? They like they do everything they're trying to do. They're smart kids, and then Ebert goes, or Siskel goes, of course they do. It's the movie. They wouldn't have an ending. But then Ebert's like, yeah, but like in that context of the movie, because it had to go that way, they had to be smart. Like, it's such a fucking good argument.
Yeah, good argument, but a very dumb movie.
I love that movie. By the way, I am hyped for Good Burger 2. Like, I fucking cannot wait. I'm keeping my Paramount Plus until at least Thanksgiving so I can watch that shit.
Nice. Let's see. So Hooptober, like I said, is almost over. I've watched basically one movie a day. I had to pick up the pace very quickly about halfway into the month because I was very much behind, but I have about 3 or 4 movies left to watch, plenty of time to watch those. So I definitely will finish the challenge. I have about 24, 25 movies on here so far. I'll just talk about some of the best ones I saw. The best one out of all of them was Ginger Snaps. It is a movie from 2000, directed by John Fawcett. It's about 2 sisters. One of them gets bitten by a werewolf, and the other one basically has a tamp down all of the symptoms of her becoming a wolf. So you can very much place upon that, like, allegories, and it's a metaphor for, puberty or adolescence or all of that stuff, very good performances, very, very good, camera work, very good, prosthetics, all of that stuff. It really worked very, very well for me. I love movies. This is like from 2000, so it's got that, late 90s sort of grunge. People are still, dressing like grunge people, long coats, big coats, thick plaid, a lot of sweaters, sort of thing. It's always funny to me looking back on that, thinking back on me in high school. I was basically in high school at this point, doing acting and wearing the same sort of clothes these girls are wearing. It's always that scene of them like on the sidelines of a football field, and everyone else is playing, and they're just like in these giant coats and sweaters, and just like slouching down and be like, I don't want to play. Playing is stupid. Trying is dumb. Blah, 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 blah. Look at all these stupid jocks and shit. So it's very funny in that way. Highly recommend that one. If you're going to watch one of them from this list, definitely recommend that one. And just a couple of more. Bibliothèque was a movie from 1955, directed by Henri Georges Clouzot. It's a French movie. It's about a woman and her husband's mistress who conspire to murder him. And it's got a very interesting sort of ending there. I won't spoil it, but it was sort of very complex and very, very interesting, ending, and very interesting, use of like prosthetics again. Very, very good prosthetic use even for that time period. And, one of the best I've seen this year for that. I don't know if you've seen or heard of these 2 movies so far.
I cannot say that I have, and I know you've mentioned Hooptober. Yeah, what is that even from? Like, who is the Hoop? Is it is it some guy named Hooper, or is it Hoopy? Like about like basketball hoops? Like what is Hooptober?
So let me go back here and find the actual person, because I know the guy's name was Cinemonster. So look up his name first. So Hooptober gets its name from Mr. Tobe Hooper. That is
Tobe Hooper.
Yes, that is the overarching theme of all of the Hooptobers for the last 10 years. What it had something. One of the criteria was you had to watch one of his movies for each of them.
I actually did watch a Tobe Hooper movie this year for the first time.
What'd you watch?
Exorcist.
Oh, that's
not
right.
Exorcist. Not Exorcist. What's the house?
Poltergeist.
The fucking Poltergeist. There we go.
Yes.
That's one. Yeah.
So he's done Cinemonster on Letterboxd, has done this for the past 10 years, and so that's basically the idea behind it. Every year he would have different criteria for each list, and he puts that out there, and everyone sort of joins in and does it, or joins in and doesn't do it. As you can see on the list there's a bunch of comments about I'm this many down, I have this many to go, I've liked this so far. So definitely a lot
of people watching Dracula 3000 because of that one. I was like, why is this keep coming? Why are all my friends watching this on Letterboxd? I was so confused.
Yes. So there's that. There's the history of Hooptober. And then just very quickly, I just want to mention a couple others that are on the top 5 of my list. I just made a best of Hooptober 2023 that you can go to if you go to Dracula La Land is my handle for this month. I actually misspelled it, so it's spelled DRAUCLALALAND. LAND on there. My number 3 is The Devils, the Ken Russell movie from 1971, which has gotten rave reviews, so I definitely wanted to check that out for this year. It is essentially about it's a dramatized historical account of the rise and fall of Urbain Grandier, the 17th century Roman Catholic priest accused of witchcraft following alleged demonic possessions of sexually repressed nuns. So if you've ever heard the name Cardinal Richelieu, he's a major player in this as well. So, you know, the thing I realized about watching this, there was another one on here that I wanted to mention because I feel like movies from the 70s, a lot of movies from the 70s were about this. They had a lot of debauchery. They had a lot of like repressed sexual needs of people. And it was a very paranoid time. You have, the culture, obviously, the Nixon and Watergate, all that stuff. You have Vietnam going on. So it's a lot of these movies that are about like, the state or authoritarian regimes, clamping down on people and people being like, no, we need sex. We're horny. Everyone's fucking horny and everyone needs sex. And you're being assholes for trying to, clamp down and trying to control human sexual needs and stuff like that. So very, very interesting movie. Highly recommend that one as well. Then just one more I want to mention real quick. Just number 4 was Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It is a movie from the year 1962 starring Betty Davis and Joan Crawford. So it has a lot of crossover for the movie like Sunset Boulevard, that sort of thing. So a lot of dramatic acting in this. A lot of chewing scenery in this film as well. So there's that. And also Sisters from the Year of our Lord 1972, directed by Brian De Palma, was my number 5. So you can check out my entire list over there on Letterboxd if you want to see everything I've watched and where I rank it this year. So there's that.
Very cool.
Woo.
I did not do that Hooptober, but I watched spooky movies. I just kind of watched random spooky movies this year.
Yes,
to be honest. Yes. I've got like 20 minutes left, but I was watching They/Them from last year.
Oh, nice. What would you think of that so far?
I like it, actually. I'm kind of like surprised that it's been getting really, really dragged by critics, because I get like what they're trying to do. I think it's kind of interesting. It's like, oh, let's take this concept, this camp, it's all these teens going to camp in the 80s, and they made like all the Jason movies, all the Friday the 13th movies about that, but it was just like heterosexual white people in that. And this is like, oh, this is a conversion camp. And so it is a very diverse cast, both in terms of like gender identities and like trans people and like non-binary people. And like some people are bi and some people are gay. And, there's people of different ethnicities and all kinds of stuff. And, so it's cool from that perspective. It's like, oh, it's a camp in the woods, but it's conversion camps, so it's that. And then you also have Kevin Bacon, the Kevin Bacon connection of like, oh yeah, he was in the first Friday the 13th. He gets through the neck,
Yes,
and he's like the big bad guy in this. So not really a spoiler because it's clearly he's not. I mean, I got 20 minutes left, but he's not doing great things so far. But I've been digging it. Maybe the last 20 minutes will suck, but I'm just like, why was Meg Mathregan the one that like with these two like boring heterosexual white people, the one that like the queer community was like gathered? And I know it's because they were like, there's like Megan wears a funny suit and she does a cool dance. Yeah. Even though the director was like, it's because of found family. I'm like, shut the fuck up. That's not why it's got a queer following, dude. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You know it's your own movie. Like them, who was actually made by a gay filmmaker, like kind of just got, just shit on by critics. It's got like a 1.7 on Letterboxd.
Wow.
But I'm enjoying it, and I'll see how it ends up, I guess.
So it sounds like a horror version of But I'm a Cheerleader. Are you aware of the movie But I'm a Cheerleader?
I am aware. I haven't seen it. Natasha Lyonne.
Yes.
There's that famous interview where she's just like, be yourself, but if you can, be gay, because being gay is clearly better. Honey, yes, darling.
It's very good.
Old Navy, come on.
Yeah, so that's what you've been watching. One more horror movie from this year that I checked out because it debuted on Shudder recently. Got a lot of praise for pretty much basically being this year's version of See No Evil, or was it not See No Evil? Speak No Evil from last year. Did you check out See No Evil, or what was it called?
I didn't see any of the. I didn't see Hear No Evil, Speak No Evil, or See No Evil. I didn't see any of them. Any of that trilogy.
Very interesting story behind it. Not be the movie, but my buddy Andy, who's a father, or maybe it was Deanne who saw it. One of them, they're both fathers, and so
disgraced former host of the show.
Yeah, exactly. They are, very cautious about things they watch in terms of, kids in danger. They don't want to watch anything about having kids in danger. And if you know anything about the movie Speak No Evil, you know that it's the whole thing is traumatically, there's a lot of traumatic things happening to kids, especially at the end of that movie. So, the movie that I'm talking about now, When Evil Lurks, is basically this year's version of that, because it's a foreign movie and it has kids in danger. It's a Spanish movie directed by Damian Runga. It is a Argentinian horror film written and directed by himself. The film stars Ezequiel Rodriguez, Damian Samal, and Luis Zambarowski. Definitely butchered those names. Premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 13th and is now available on Shudder, so you have that. Highly recommend checking it out. It has some of the best prosthetics I've seen in a very long time. I know I praise prosthetics a lot, but they're done either really well or really terribly. So this was one that was done really well. One of those movies that is sort of really based on, it's a possession movie. So we've had a bunch of those. Everyone that talks about this movie talks about how, Evil Dead Rise, Pope's Exorcist, and The Exorcist Believer. A lot of possession movies out there this year, but this is definitely one of the best ones.
Two of them came out on the same day, which is weird.
Very, very strange. But this, in my mind, is one of the best of those. It might be, I have to think about it more, but it might be on my top 10 of the year. It is incredible. Really highly recommend checking that out. And that's we're only left with one more, so we'll move on to stuff you've been doing. You checked out Knott's Scary Farm on its 50th anniversary.
Yes, I did. It's are you familiar with Knott's Scary Farm?
Yeah, because I've heard people that are based in California talk about going to Knott's Berry Farm, right? That's the name of it year round, and then during the spooky season they changed to Knott's Scary Farm, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So they still have the regular farm, the rides and stuff open in the day, but then they close around like 5 or 6, and then around 8 they open back up with mazes. It's same thing as like Halloween Horror Nights or any of those kind of, like where they take the theme parks and they open them at night and they put in the mazes or the haunted houses, whatever they want to call them, where you walk through and there's like just scare actors and they've got all this mysterious lore and stuff like that. And Knott's was the first place to do that. Knott's was the first place to be like, hey, we're going to take our theme park, we're going to close it down. And when they first did it 50 years ago, it was just like a 3-night thing, like 3 nights leading up to Halloween. And now it's like goes from September to October 31st. And so I was like, you know what? I've got to go to this. It's the 50th anniversary. I'm right here, like literally like 20 minutes away from Knott's. So I should go to this. I should be there for this momentous event. And Universal's cool. The Queen Mary one, which is now run by Shock, apparently, is cool. There's like a Six Flags one. I haven't been to the Six Flags or the Queen Mary one, but I've been to Universal a couple times, and I've been to Knott's a number of times in the past. And Knott's, especially compared to like Universal, is just so much more like homegrown. Like Universal's like big money, like this is a big movie studio, and like Knott's is just like these like just some kids from fucking like UCB, like fucking like theater majors, like coming in on the weekends, but that's like why it's charming, that's what's great about it, because they're not like Universal's like, here's the Us maze, here's the fucking Last House Special maze, like, and those are cool, but like Knott's just makes shit up. They're like, cool, this is like, and it's like all this weird interconnected lore that's like, and they'll like have some like they'll rotate mazes out like every few years. Like, so the ones that I saw last year, some of those were gone that had been there for a couple of years, and now there's new mazes. So I made sure to hit all of them up. I got to go on a Thursday, so I got to I knocked a bunch of the mazes out. I still had time to, and like they take their famous log ride and their famous calico ride, and they kind of make them spookier So you get to go through and see that it's like, oh, the haunted candy behind, the witch is gonna eat the kids, you know, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, and there's stuff like there's the grimoire, this evil book, and you know, one of the best ones is there's this in the Old West part, because that's one of the big things about Knott's. It's very Old West, and there's based on this real ghost town called Calico. And for some reason, they named the witch Sarah Marshall in the lore. And there's this guy like standing outside. He's like, "Oh, you out there? We're gonna deputize you, so you're gonna get Sarah Marshall." And he like they always say the same name. They're like, "Make sure you go get Sarah Marshall." And I'm just like, I played a drinking game where every time they said Sarah Marshall, I would take a drink. And you know, there's the actor there on the stage is like, "You out there? I bet you're all trying to get the reward for Sarah Marshall." And I go, "No, I'm trying to forget Sarah Marshall." It's a lot of fun, and the big new maze this year, they had a couple new mazes, but they had one big that was like the centerpiece maze, where it had been like this pumpkin maze for the last couple of years, but in that spot now, it's the big, it's the like 50th anniversary maze, and so it was like celebrating all the previous like 50 years, so there was like parts of the maze that were like, here's a little part from this maze, here's a little part from this one, and they'll be just like, you'll go through like catacombs, and they'll have like on the headstones like, here's this maze that ran from like 1992 to 1998. So it was really cool, really nostalgic, because I went on some of those when I was a kid. I went on some of them the last couple of years, so it was a blast. I always love Knott's, you know. Anybody who comes down to SoCal, I know it's all Disney, Universal, and stuff like that.
Yep.
But if you're here, especially at the spooky times, come check out Knott's Scary Farm. They also had some very delicious drinks that I had 3 of, and I was having a very good time with that. It was very expensive, but man, it was good. I had to, you know, get a little bit like, all right, come on, scare me, guys. So I had a good that
Nice, very cool. That was gonna be my question. Like, what were the drinks like? Were they blood drinks? Were they like what kind of drinks and food did they have over there?
They had like some spooky themed ones, like there was this vodka drink called Into the Fog, you know, because you're walking through the fog. Yeah. And I was drinking my like Into the Fog pink lemonade vodka, you know. Yeah. And then there was one. It was one. I wish I remember what it was called, but it was a mango lemonade vodka, and it was like tied into the other new maze, because there was this maze and there's like a Roaring 20s part of the park, which is funny now because we're in the 20s again. We're now in the Roaring 20s again.
Not roaring that much, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you go through like, it's like basically like this. It's like a Shining mixed with The Great Gatsby, like where you're just like going through this like spooky ass hotel. And they're like, people were drinking this crazy drink, and it made them all turn into Jack Nicholson, you know, like that kind of thing. Like, and I was like, fuck, I just drank that drink. I was like walking over to the line, and now you're telling me that it's gonna make me a spooky, like I'm gonna like come at like my wife with an axe and be like, here's Derick, you know, like.
That's amazing. Yeah, definitely want to check.
So not everybody knows Knott's Berry Farm has the deepest lore.
There you go. Very cool. So with that, why don't we take a break real quick? But before, and on the other side of the break, we will be reviewing the Killers of the Flower Moon. So we'll be right back. And we're back. So we're going to be talking about Killers of the Flower Moon, obviously. How about we do a couple minutes of spoiler free and then just dive right into the whole thing?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So spoiler free review of this movie. Movie good. Moving on. No, it's
3 hours and 30 minutes. That's the review.
That's the review, baby. Get them clicks, get them engagements, get them views. No, this is totemic. This is a masterpiece. I think it's one of Scorsese's best movies that he's made. You know, in my opinion, all of his library, but definitely within this last, what would you call it? Past, 2010. Wolf of Wall Street era, right? Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, Irishman. Did I forget one in there? Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, Irishman.
Those are his last 3, I think.
I believe so. Yeah. So yeah, just one of his best in that era. One of his best overall. I really, really loved all of it. Love the performances. Love the story. Love all of it. Definitely dive more deeper into it after we put the spoiler bumper on here. So, what'd you think overall of this film?
I liked it. Also, I'm very confused that you just gave it such a glowing review because I was expecting to be the one defending this movie because I saw you gave it a 3-star rating on Letterboxd.
Did I? That might have been an
You
excellent.
did. Okay. All right. Because
I
then I clicked on your review.
Okay, I adjusted it.
I see. Yeah, I clicked on your review and it says 4 stars. Okay, so that makes all right. But yeah, no, I enjoyed this movie. You know, I'm a very big Scorsese fan, especially when Scorsese is doing different things. You know, like obviously, I said I really like Hugo. I really like Silence is my favorite film of his. I'm going to be talking about Gangs in New York on a podcast in like a couple weeks here. And this was pretty good. I really, really enjoyed it. You know, it's for me, it's not one of Scorsese's best, but it is still a very, very good movie. I think it's definitely on my long list of movies of the year. I don't know if it's going to crack my top 10, to be honest, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think Leo is pretty great in it. I think as is De Niro, as is Lily Gladstone, and a number of other great character actors. Brendan Fraser is I loved him so much in this.
You loved him in this, okay?
Yeah, but you know, it's like it's definitely a condemnation of like, you know, white nationalism and all that, and you know, it's definitely a Scorsese, even though he's like, I'm gonna do my Western. I'm like, it's still more of a crime movie. It's more of your Scorsese crime movie than a Western, but that's okay, because it's not really a Western at all. It's like, it's set in Oklahoma in not really the Old West, kind of like the tail end of it, technically. Like, I guess, you know, the Wild Bunch was set around the same time, but whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. I liked it. You know, I think, you know, some people brought up the criticism that maybe this is a movie about, you know, how Indians or Native Americans were taken advantage of. It could have been a little more from their perspective, but I do like that even though it is from the white people's perspective, it's from the perspective of people who suck and are awful, and you do not, do not really like for the most part.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found this movie quite good and quite enjoyable.
Nice.
A little slow.
A little slow.
Maybe it could have been a miniseries. You could do. I could see Scorsese doing the thing that Tarantino did with The Hateful Eight, his, you know, quasi-Western that was like fucking 4 hours long also, and he was just like, actually, I'm just gonna take this to Netflix, and I'm like, well, it's already on Apple Plus, you could already do that, you know.
Yeah. So from now on we'll do spoilers starting right now for Killers of the Flower Moon.
Whose land is this?
My land.
Well, our war hero has arrived.
You made a good choice coming back here. Osage are the finest, wealthiest, and most beautiful people on God's earth. They outsmarted everybody.
They have the say. Who gets the oil?
Son, I got a question. You like women?
That's my weakness.
Well, we mix these families together, and that estate money flows the right direction. It'll come to us.
Shomikasi. That's how you are.
I don't know what you said, but it must have been Indian for handsome devil.
Why did you come here?
I work with my uncle.
You scared of him?
Oh, he's the nicest man in the world.
The Osage, their time is over. We got to take back control of our home.
I was sent down from Washington, D.C. to see about these murders.
We have so many deaths, we've lost count.
There's just bad luck.
Seems more like an epidemic than bad luck to me.
Osage is dying by the enemy. Do not let them die alone.
Evil surrounds my heart.
So, yeah, like I said, loved most of it, pretty much all of it. Loved the performances. I did read the book, so I knew, you know, the events of it. I knew if you want to consider these events, especially near the end, to be twists. I knew the twists. I knew not just the major players, not just Hale, not just Leo's character, but, everybody involved. I knew going into it which detective was going to live, because there are many detectives that are introduced and killed off fairly quickly. People that you think are going to be major players because they are, having these good discussions with Lily Gladstone and Leo's character, telling them, here's what I found out. Here's some things you probably didn't know. Did you know that Anna, that was her name, right? Anna that was killed, her sister.
Anna was killed, yeah.
Yeah, and she was pregnant. And so there was major investment involved in that one specific detective. So that was something that I knew he was not going to last very long. Going into this, I knew it was about the FBI, so I knew that was coming in. So a lot of the plot points that were probably landed differently for you in terms of the twist didn't
you told me it was about the FBI, so I knew that.
Oh, sure. But I just mean the whole who was doing it and why. So I'm interested to know from your perspective, somebody that didn't read the book, how did those events land for you?
Well, I mean, I knew that those other detectives weren't going to last long because Jesse Plemons is in the fucking trailer.
Sure.
And he comes in at about the 3-hour mark. And I was kept being where the fuck is Jesse Plemons? Is he going to ever get up here and solve this goddamn case? And then there's another hour of movie that's a court drama after that. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So things definitely moved at I will say a slow pace, towards that resolution. Just things kind of winding out. I think Leo as a character in this is absolutely fascinating. I was really not sure what his character was going to do, because I knew through promotional stuff and that he was kind of not a great guy and he betrayed his wife, but I didn't know how or to the extent of that. And right from the beginning, it's clear that this guy sucks. But I also just like that he's just a dumb idiot. He's so dumb. And it makes you almost want to be compassionate for him, because he's clearly just getting taken advantage of by his uncle, but he's also doing things that are profoundly horrible and evil, like poisoning his wife. And it's it's one of those things. It's that whole thing. It's is he just that ignorant about what he's doing, or is he trying to convince himself that it's not going to work? And what did you think of the scene where he drinks the poison himself? Was that in the book at all?
I don't remember if that was in the book. I think that's probably something they, created. But I think, the confliction of his actions and his complicity in those actions is something that I think we'll be talking about for a while, because I think it's staged very well in that it's portrayed as, how dumb is he? How ignorant is he of these events, and how much of his intelligence is masking that, and how much of his belief in his uncle, that his uncle isn't doing terrible things to other people, and especially his wife. I think in the book, it made it much more evident that, he did love her, but there's also a lot of other things where it's possible that he had sex with other people and impregnated other people. It was insinuated in the book that he impregnated Anna, but that's not brought up in the movie. To your question about why did he take the pill? Why did he drink the poison? Was it? I think it was morphine, right? That they were giving her, and the thing what he took, right?
I don't remember it being morphine. If it did, I missed it. But I knew it was poison. I thought it was like arsenic or something.
So I think at that point he knows he fucked up, and that's probably that version of monks and whatever Christians slapping themselves on the back doing that, paying penance for doing terrible things. I think that's his version of that. And like you spoke to about Scorsese's interest in Catholicism, that's a big part of Catholicism is paying penance for sins that you've done. So I think that's what that is there. So yeah, to answer your question, I do think at that point he does know what he's done, and he's punishing himself for it.
Yeah, and you can't. There's at points when you can't help but feel for him. When he at the end he admits to everything except for what he did to his wife. He can't bring himself to admit that. He can't bring himself to admit that he only pursued a relationship because his uncle told him to. Because he does clearly love her, but he still clearly betrayed her ultimately. And then you know, when his child dies, the young Anna, like that is truly devastating, and you feel so bad for him, and that's a moment where you're like, good, like, you know, have this not heroic turn, but it's just like just taking responsibility, you know, like just finally after the worst thing imaginable happened to him, which is maybe his own fault, because of his actions, neither him nor his wife were able to take care of their child. um that happens to him, and he tries to get back some semblance of himself, and you know, thinking he can get this deal, which he still got sentenced to life, you know. So he's definitely a really really complex, interesting character. All the themes of just like, you know, and I think unlike a lot of the characters, he's not necessarily racist. He's just very greedy and very stupid, you know, which are not virtues by any means of the imagination, but you know, his uncle is just an unrelenting, just horrible fucking monster. But he obviously has some humanity in him, which almost makes him worse in some ways, because you know, he is, you know, he is empathetic. He does love his wife. He's not a person who has no feelings for other people, and he still does these things. So yeah, I mean, the more I'm talking about the movie, the more I'm appreciating it, to be honest. Not that I didn't appreciate it, but like, it is so deep, and it's a movie that if it wasn't 3.5 hours long, I would probably want to rewatch it soon, because it's just on Apple. But it is so long, I don't know when I'm gonna sit down and be like, all right, guess I'm gonna devote my day to Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, I was in the theater for over 4 hours, because it started late. The bulb burned out, and they had to replace the bulb, so it was 45 minutes. I did get a ticket for another show, so that was good, but I was in the theater for almost 4 hours, or more than 4 hours, because of that. But yeah, just to your point about being, you know, him as a person, I think this is, you know, we have to reckon with a lot of this stuff going forward as a people, as a country, as just human beings. As like, you know, in my review, I said we're the cops and the robbers, we're the terrorists and the resistance. We're all of that all at once. We are we are Leo's character. We are Ernest. We are also his uncle King. We're all these people at the same time. You know, and so just coming to terms with that, I think it's really, really hard for a lot of people. And so when you display our history and all of these actions that we have taken, being the good guys and quote unquote good guys and quote unquote bad guys, at the same time, it can lead to a very what do you call that? You know, holding two thoughts in your head at the same time is very, very difficult.
Dichotomy, yeah.
Dichotomy, thank you. Yeah, just having those two thoughts at the same time can be very difficult for a lot of people. You know, this movie is dealing with a lot of, you know, terrorism, and I didn't write my review, but in the notes I said it's you know, fascism and imperialism and capitalism and racism, they all fit together because they all want the same thing. You know, they all want to exploit people, and they want to exploit people's bodies and their lives and their money and their social structure and their infrastructure, and they just want to take everything because they believe it belongs to them, because they believe, you know, because of manifest destiny and all of that bullshit. So you know, it ties all of that together. I think it ties a lot of the themes that Scorsese has been working towards and working with for his entire career, of just criminals doing crimes that are not being investigated and people not being punished for those crimes because of the same sort of people are supporting them. You know, Wolf of Wall Street, you saw this in Goodfellas, you saw this in a lot of his different movies, deal with not just criminals doing crimes and getting away with it and having a good time doing it, but also the fact that the law enforcement in this country is very, very complicit, but also very, you know, very there's no teeth to a lot of the enforcements for them. So there's that. And then just getting into some of the specifics of like the editing, you know, the editor, Thelma Schoonmaker, did a lot of interviews this week. You know, she's also in her 80s, so she's looking back on her career a lot. Fantastic editing in this movie. Definitely, he obviously worked with the late, great Robert Robertson on the score. What did you make of the score? Because it's very droning. It's got this very ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom thrumming beat throughout it. What did you make of that?
I liked that, and it felt almost reminiscent of, you know, a lot of and I'm saying this from a place of relative ignorance, but it felt like a very reminiscent of what we imagine to be a lot of Native American sounding chants and things like that. And the film even ends with the Osage banging. They're on the drum, and you have that crone shot or that drone shot kind of like leading up, and that it did seem like maybe that's what they were drawing on.
Yes, absolutely. One specific moment to talk about the cinematography done by Rodrigo Prieto, who also worked on Barbie from this year. Amazing shot when the fields are burning. I think King, Daenerys' character, set the fields on fire, and it's very, very reminiscent. If you've seen the movie, Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven, that was just an incredible scene. Great cinematography throughout the movie, right? Yeah,
it looked stunning, as Spielberg films so often do. I couldn't tell, but I was trying to figure out if this was shot digitally or on film. Do you have the answer to that by any chance?
I believe it's digital. I believe he was talking about with Thelma Shoemaker doing a lot of the editing on this. He could do a lot of things he couldn't do before. Thelma and Scorsese could do a lot of things that they couldn't do before because it was shot on film. A lot of long takes. A lot of long takes in this movie. Yeah. One of the longest ones was in the car. I believe they were talking about this because they talked about how Leo did some improv. Just a quick tangent about improv generally, and because Joe Pesci has been. They talked about him doing improvising the "Do you think I'm funny?" scene in Goodfellas, and when they talk about improv, specifically there, but also in a lot of movies, they're working it out. They'll say something, they'll take an idea, then they'll write it down, and then form it and do all of that stuff. He's not saying those things literally at the moment that they're filming it. They're working on it. They're saying things in the moment and then saying, okay, we'll add that. We'll take this out. But there's that scene where Leo and Lily Gladstone are in the car and Lily's in the backseat and she says something and Leo's like, I don't know what you just said, but I bet it was Indian for handsome devil or something like that. And she does like a genuine laugh. And I believe that was the scene they were talking about being improvised or as improvised as it can be. So that was just an example of one really great long shot. Again, one of the moments in the movie that I wrote down. So these notes I have in the doc, by the way, were actually in the theater. I always take a corner seat so I can sort of have my phone sideways so I'm not distracting anybody. But the scene where they're in the house and it's one of the first scenes that Leo and Lily Gladstone have together, and there's a storm going on outside, and Lily says, quiet down, or we have to sit in the silence, and that was a very good scene. That was one of the scenes that they shot for the trailer, and I remember hearing that. That was one of. Do you remember maybe 2 or 3 years ago when they first were doing press for this movie, and they had that one first shot, and somebody said something like, "Leo is unrecognizable in this." And we were like, "Who are you talking about? That's Leonardo fucking DiCaprio right there. What do you even mean?" But yeah, just
it's not exactly Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
No, so that's just an example of really great drawn out scene, and I think it's indicative of equality in Martin Scorsese's work, where we're at this point now where it's just, of course it's great, but then you compare this to almost anything.
He's always going to knock it out.
But then you compare that to somebody else, something else, and you're like, oh, okay, he's the master for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, no.
Go ahead.
He's so good, and I think I just want to circle back to the novel and the differences of the novel, and I know that in the book, it's much more from the perspective of the Jesse Plemons character, White, and I think that I believe that Leo was originally cast in that role, that it was going to be much more according to the book, with it's about this character hunting down these murderers, and you would have seen him, and then in the movie he's in the end, but he's barely a character. Jesse Plemons does a great job, but he's pretty insignificant. And I think that is a very smart decision for this film, so that it's not a quote unquote white savior film. It's not about, well, here's the start of the FBI and this true crime thing, and it's like, no, it's much more of a perspective of the white person who sucks, the person who is doing these murders, and the much more, it's a much more interesting, complex character, like we were just saying about Leo. And I think that's a decision that Leo and Scorsese came together, because Leo, who, obviously was a producer on this, and they've had such a long-standing partnership. This is now their 6th film they've done together. Obviously, De Niro had done even more films than that. This is the 11th film they've done together. And De Niro, of course, who had not worked with him since he worked with Leo, came back for The Irishman. So it was really great to see both of them. But I think the perspective shift is really what makes this movie for me, because I think if you tell this movie from the FBI's perspective, then it's just another true crime it's like a good gangster movie probably, but it's not this searing indictment like it is here, with this truly interesting character at its core, like it ends up being.
Yeah, they've talked about, like you said, Leo was originally going to be the Tom White character, and I forget what triggered it, but they eventually came to the conclusion that, because Scorsese and Leo were talking to the Osage people and throughout the conversations, they kept saying that the people that did, maybe not the people that knew them, but the people that were related to people that actually knew them, kept saying that Ernest actually did love Molly. Ernest really did love Molly Kyle, Ernest's wife. So that was the point. That was the trigger for them to realize, okay, this is the heart of the movie, is their relationship, and how Ernest does, like you said, like you started out saying, that Ernest does terrible, terrible things to Molly, whether he knew them or not. He still did them, and yet everybody still said that, despite all that, they still believe that Ernest did genuinely love Molly. So that's where this dynamic and this framing of the story very much took form. So yeah, you're correct about that. I did a pretty long review. I'm just looking through it for, it was co-written by Eric Roth, who did a lot of co-writing with Scorsese. So that definitely they basically came together and decided on the framing that they would eventually see. What did you feel about like some of the hints of humor? Because there are points of this movie, one of them specifically, when the person that was responsible for a lot of the killings sits down and asks for an insurance policy on his kids. And the insurance salesman says to him, "Son, it sounds like you're taking out a policy just so you can kill your kids." And he's like, "Is that against the law?" or something like that. It's just these moments of absurd.
He's basically saying like his wife who died under mysterious circumstances, and now he's got these kids that have his last name, and he's like, "Can I legally adopt them? And if they died, would I get paid out?" And he's like, "Sounds like you're telling me you want to adopt these kids and then kill them." And he's like, "Well, not if you're telling me that I can't do it."
So what did you make? What did you make of those sort of bits of humor thrown in there? Did they sort of, take away from the seriousness of the story, or were they a welcome break from the heaviness of the story?
I think they worked. I always think that Scorsese is a very, very funny director. I think that he always has these movies that have these big serious movies that have these very funny moments, and it never feels like tonal whiplash. It's never like, "Oh, he's right behind me, isn't he?" It's always it flows very naturally with the story, with the characters, because it doesn't feel like they're doing movie jokes. It feels like oh, these are like people, these are at times dumb people, and the people in the movie aren't laughing, but we are, because it's so dumb, so I think that he balances that tone really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to highlight Lily Gladstone for a second, because something I said in the review, which was, people like Sir Ben Kingsley have said that the best he can do, if he's doing his job correctly, he's doing as little as possible to still portray the emotional impact of the words or actions that he's saying. And I think, Lily Gladstone does that, very, very well in this movie. She has immense power in her stillness. She's so still in this throughout a lot of this movie, and so much of her emotion comes from her eyes. What did you think of her performance?
I thought she was great, and I think I was thinking about it a lot. I was like, this is a role that I would really hope would get nominated at the Academy Awards, but it's a lot of times the Academy doesn't award. Maybe she'll get nominated, but I don't think she has a chance of winning, because, like you were saying, it's a very stoic, very still role, And a lot of times the Academy likes when people are yelling and screaming and blah blah blah,
Yeah.
Which that can be good, but like the Academy is often looking for the much more showy performance. Those are the roles that get talked about a lot. Whereas I think stuff like this is really great, and because it is so stoic and under the radar, unfortunately it might get passed over. But I thought she was absolutely phenomenal in this.
Yes, she was very good. Leo as well. He's making this face. I think we have to talk about the faces that Leo's making throughout this movie. Just this like grizzled frown that he's got on.
My friend who I saw was like, "Is this Leo's frowniest movie?" And I was like, "I don't know, The Revenant," but
yeah, it does need to be said. Like the casting is kind of strange, just because they do this a lot. Well, they'll have characters that they're supposed to be portraying, and the actual characters at that time were much younger than these actors are now. I think Leo's character was supposed to be in his early 20s. Obviously Leo's almost 50 by now. I think William Hale's character was much younger, but still did work from that respect. Anything I didn't mention as far as like acting performances in this movie? What do you think of Jesse Plemons as Tom White?
Jesse Plemons is good. He doesn't have a ton to do, but like he's very, he's another very reserved, very stoic role. He does his really well. There's a lot of character actors that particularly show up towards the end. As soon as I was like, wait a minute, I know that voice. That's John Lithgow. So I was happy to see him turn up. And then Marty gets a cameo, of course. In the end, he comes to deliver the message of the movie there at the end, and you're like, all right, I see what you're doing here, Marty. But I mentioned Brendan Fraser, and I know some people have been critical of him, but I thought he was great. I thought he was so good. He's doing this big over the top thing, but that's exactly like what an evil, corrupt lawyer would be like. I thought he was so good. He was really funny, but like menacing at the same time, and he's doing these like faces. He's like, I'm free, Brendan Fraser now. I'm all fluffy and mean now, and you're like, I love it. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, you are correct that sure, maybe that was him, and that is a style that type of lawyer would do. I'm not saying it's not accurate. I'm just saying it didn't fit the tone of the movie, and so it very much stood out as like, okay, you went for it, and I appreciate it, and I give you A for effort, but I think he could have toned it down a little bit.
I don't know. It's pitch perfect for me.
Okay. Very quickly, some supporting actors in this. Jason Isbell as Bill Smith, Minnie's husband, was fantastic in this. You mentioned Brendan Fraser already. Let's see. Scott Shepherd was very good as Byron Burkhart, Ernest's younger brother. He was actually, now that I know who he was, I was like, who is this? Yes, very incredible performance as just this guy in the background. He's always standing behind King Hale. Yes. Speaking
of people standing behind, did you see that fucking Foggy Nelson is in this with no lines?
Yeah, I did. I saw that. I was
like, is that Foggy? Yeah. And then he didn't have any lines. He just showed up every once in a while in the background. I guess he must have had some lines that got cut or something. Yeah. I was like, hey, I mean, like he talked more in the Hunger Games, I feel like, and his tongue was cut out in that movie.
That's very funny. So just as we're coming, sort of to the close here, you had at the end, like you said, the radio performance. You had Jack White, obviously, as the radio show actor. You had Pete Yorn there. You had a bunch of people in the background there. And, of course, Martin Scorsese closes it out. What did you make of that framing? Because here's my take on it. He's presenting a certain level of self-awareness, meaning he's telling a story about atrocity and he's framing it the best he can. He's framing it at the end of the day. It's a product, it's entertainment. And so I think he's showing a pretty high level of a self-awareness about what this is, so I think he's by showing it, he's saying, I know what we're doing another version of this. It's more accurate. It's more about the Osage. It's more focused on their atrocities committed upon them, but it's not perfect, and he knows that. So that was my interpretation of what that was about.
Yeah, he's like, we're still continuing this tradition of there was like just in the olden days it would have been like this, it would have been like, here's the show presented by the cigarettes, and and now it's like, most modern movies would have like that somber text, and it's like, yeah, nothing really fucking changed, nothing really happened, like they caught these guys, but they were in jail for a while, and they got out on parole, and and then Marty comes in, and it's very clear, like he's the one delivering that last line, is like, yeah, like this all continues, and I'm here a part of it, and then so I thought that framing device was pretty interesting.
Yeah, as did I. So I think I forgot here. I know I wrote down some people I wanted to mention. Jacqueline West, costume designer of The Revenant, Dune, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, fantastic, costuming, especially Lily Gladstone, obviously that contributes a lot to her performance, because they basically have her, wrapped up a lot in that garment that she's wearing. So that was...
I love cozy blankets. I was like, man... It looks so comfortable. It did
look very comfortable. Set design, Adam Willis was great at that. And we already mentioned Rodrigo Petro and Thelma Shoemaker editing. Robbie Robertson's score was incredible. So anything we haven't talked about yet that you want to highlight for this movie?
The only thing I'll say is Damian, if you had seen this movie at my showing, I think you would have murdered somebody. Because I know how you're like, you get your hyper like sensitivity when you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
And the people that were sitting next to me, the movie starts, and I hear the woman set down her popcorn. She's like, "Don't kick this over." And then the guy goes, "Yes, mommy." And I'm like, "Oh, don't like that." And then he's like, "We're at the age now where we can start calling each other mommy and daddy." I was like, "Fuck this." And then they were like, and then she starts flossing.
What?
And yeah, I could just hear the.
Okay,
like, what the? So, and then they got just cuddled up, and they just thought it was. They kept getting up and going to the bathroom the whole time. Which I get it, it's a 3.5-hour movie, but I'm like, I was like, why are you guys seeing this movie? Like, you guys are clearly here for like a fun date night.
Yeah.
Like, what? Go see Five Nights at Freddy's. Like, what is happening?
That's awful. Yeah, I hate when that shit happens. Let me see. Yeah, I think that's about it. So that'll do it for a review of Killers of the Flower Moon. I have it right now as my second favorite movie of the year, behind Past Lives. Yeah. I don't know where to put it with Scorsese's work. Like I said, so some of the favorites of his from his last 10 years of filmmaking, some of my favorite of his of all time. I think, like with Irishman, I definitely need more time to think about it and maybe even see this for a second time before I can definitively put it, rank it somewhere.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Like, it's something, excuse me, I would like to rewatch. Probably will rewatch on an Apple Plus. I'm not going to probably make another trip to the theater for 3.5 hours. 4 hours with the commercials and Nicole Kidman. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad it's on Apple Plus, or it's going to be on Apple Plus coming up in a couple weeks here.
Yeah, so that'll do it. If you agree or disagree with our review of Killers of the Flower Moon, right into Midnight. What is it? gotta relearn the email.
It's a new, we're the whole new thing here.
midnightfilmsociety@gmail.com. If you agree or disagree with our takes. I do want to say one thing. Walter Chaw, one of my favorite film critics, has just is so fucking poetic. I finished writing my review, and I go to him. I'm like, I'm like looking at fucking the Sistine Chapel after I just did like a stick figure painting. So Walter Chaw opens a review with, quote, "I think Martin Scorsese is perhaps too principled a filmmaker to indulge in the dark poetry of The Killers of the Flower Moon, too bound by limitations he's aware of and wary of violating, too respectful of the honor of the history to mark it with the crackle of verve and vitality. A sober topic deserves a sober treatment, no question. Yet Scorsese, at his best, is doing lines off the hood of a vintage Impala, not running lines with actors and advisors, all with competing interests and hardwired biases, to find the most cogent, most reasonable way to approach a tripwire." So just great.
There you go.
Great stuff. So there's that. Let's move on to Rebecca Simons. You had The Jewel Thief last time. I do have a good reason for not seeing mine, because it was not available anywhere. I had to pay $5 for it. So did you check out The Jewel Thief?
I did. I watched it almost immediately after we recorded because I was at my parents' last week. Sans parents, just me and my brother and my dog hanging out. Yeah. And after my brother went to bed because he had to, or maybe it was the next day when he went to work. Either way, I watched it immediately. And yeah, this is not a very well-known doc. It's pretty interesting about a very flawed character, a lot of twists and turns, real-life true crime. And it's a movie that I could definitely see someone like Scorsese adapting because it's a very, very fascinating character in the middle of this. He doesn't steal that many jewels. He only steals one jewel. Spoiler alert.
Oh, come on.
I'm like watching halfway through the movie and I was like, this guy has stolen a lot of money and he's done a lot of interesting things. Like he's very, very like meticulous and smart criminal, doing all this stuff like while banks are being constructed, putting cameras and microphones in so that he can come and break in later and doing all this insane stuff and breaking out of like police headquarters when he was like 15 and but then I'm like, where's the fucking jewels? And I get because the jewels.
Where's the jewels, Robowski?
Right. Did you say Robowski?
Robowski, yeah. Where's the jewels, Robowski?
But I guess the Jewel Thief is a more catchy title than the Money Thief. So I get why they named it that. But yeah. It was a good movie that I was like, I could see this being like a great like Scorsese or somebody could, not Clint Eastwood, God no, but like someone could take this this guy's story and make a really interesting biopic of it.
Nice, very cool. So let's do a Letterboxd shuffle. I'm gonna go to my watch list. I have 245 films altogether. It cuts it down to 125 that are on my favorite streaming services. So I'm gonna hit shuffle. Get The Devil's Backbone. Okay, this is one of the first Guillermo del Toro movies from 2001. Spain, 1939. So again, going back to a lot of the stuff he's been doing before.
Yeah, interesting.
In the days of the Spanish Civil War, the young Carlos arrives at the Santa Lucia orphanage, where he will make friends and enemies as he follows the quiet footsteps of a mysterious presence eager for revenge. So I'll be checking that out for next time. Derick, tell me what you got on your watch list shuffle.
All right, I got 507. It's putting into the services that I own, taking out TV shows, and sorting by shuffle. And we've got The Cat Returns.
Nice.
The Studio Ghibli film by Hiroyuki Morita. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Okay. Interested to see this. I have seen all of the Miyazaki movies, but not all of the Ghibli movies in general. So, should be cool. I'm excited to check this one out.
Nice. That is also one of my blind spots in terms of the Ghibli movies. So yeah, maybe I'll check that out as well. Next time, 2 weeks from now, Priscilla should be. It's in limited release or might go wide on November 3rd. That is the new Sophia Coppola movie based on the book Elvis and Me by Priscilla Presley. We have The Holdovers coming out that same week, directed by Alexandra Payne with Paul Giamatti, and Nyad, a biopic on marathon swimmer Diana Nyad starring Annette Benning. So hopefully we'll check out some of those or all of them for next time. And we'll do some plugs. I am 53 away from 200 followers. Been super active on the old Letterboxd. Doing the Hooptober probably helped a lot. Doing a lot of reviews. Got a pretty good response to the Killers of Flower Moon review on there. That's also on my Medium blog, damian.sherman.medium.com. You can go there from all of my reviews. Film Essayist on YouTube, Spotify for podcasters. Go back to the back catalog of my interviews with TikToker Cinema Tech, BR Yeager, and go back to and check out all the Succession Season 4 breakdowns and The Bear Season 2 with Dion. Derick, what you got to plug?
I'm plugging my podcast Underrated, which is, going to be out today. There's going to be a new episode out, our Halloween episode, actually, on Burnt Offerings, a 1976 film starring Karen Black, Oliver Reed, and then you mentioned her in another film earlier, Bette Davis. This is a really interesting film. If you're a horror fan, it almost feels like a proto version of Poltergeist, of The Shining, of a lot of those haunted house movies that would come out in the late 70s and 80s, and this predated all of them. So had a lot of fun checking this out. Had on Matt from the Matt Mark Movie Show, who was the one who brought me this movie, and I thought it was pretty phenomenal. So check that out. I'm doing a lot of other podcast stuff. Got a new Patreon going. So I've got a new Patreon podcast called Underdogs, where I talk about sports movies. Damian's going to be talking about a basketball film with me coming up here. And then I'm also, I think I can talk about this now. I don't think any of the reviews are out by the time this is dropping, but I'm now writing for Film Threat. So
congratulations.
Thank you. So I've written a few reviews for that. They should be going up on these sites soon. So if you're a fan of independent film, check out Film Threat. Check out some of my reviews that will be up there.
Nice, very cool. And for the brand new Midnight Film Society, I have been Damian.
And I've been Derick.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.